My name is Dan, but most folks around here just call me Big Dan. I'm 44 years old, and my life has been spent under the hoods of cars and trucks, surrounded by the smell of oil and the honest grit of a working garage. My shop, Dan's Auto Repair, has been a fixture on this side of Detroit for longer than I've been alive. My father built it from nothing, and I've been trying my best to keep it going ever since he passed. Every morning, before the sun even thought about stretching its arms across the city skyline, I was already there, coffee mug in hand, the wrench feeling like a natural extension of my arm. I prided myself on my work, on fixing things right the first time, on making sure every vehicle that left my lot was safer than when it came in. But lately, pride didn't pay the bills. The city was changing, fewer people had old cars worth fixing, and the shiny new ones needed specialized computers I just couldn't afford to keep upgrading. My dream, the one I inherited from my dad, felt like it was slipping through my greasy fingers. The biggest challenge wasn't just the long hours or the aching back. It was the quiet worry that settled in my gut every night. It was the stack of unpaid bills on my desk, the rising cost of parts, and the constant fear that I wasn't enough. My internal nemesis wasn't some external enemy. It was the gnawing doubt that whispered, "You're failing, Dan. You're letting everyone down." I had a daughter, Sarah, who was just starting college, and every penny I earned I wanted to save for her. I wanted her to have a life better than mine, a life where she didn't have to worry about where the next repair job was coming from. I wanted her to chase her own dreams, not inherit my anxieties. That's what kept me pushing, even when my shoulders felt like they carried the weight of the world. I tried everything to improve things. I worked harder, often staying until midnight, pulling double shifts when possible. I even started doing some weekend house calls for extra cash, something my dad would have scoffed at. I cut every corner I could, eating cold leftovers instead of buying lunch, using older tools a bit longer than I should have, putting off repairs on my own old truck. But it felt like for every 2 steps forward, the world pushed me 3 steps back. Last month, a critical part for a big engine overhaul I was doing was back-ordered for weeks, costing me the job and leaving the customer frustrated. Then, just last week, my heavy-duty lift, the one I needed for trucks and vans, started making a grinding noise, threatening to give out completely. A new one would cost more than I made in 2 months. I patched it up as best I could, but it was just a temporary fix. It felt like I was constantly treading water, barely keeping my head above the surface. I started to wonder if it was time to just close the doors, sell the land, and find a steady job somewhere, even if it meant giving up my family's legacy. The thought stung worse than any oil burn. Then Tuesday morning, the phone rang. It was an emergency. A bus broken down on the outskirts of town. "Engine trouble," the voice on the other end said. "We're stranded." My heart gave a little jump. A bus. That could be a big job, exactly what I needed. I quoted my usual diagnostic fee and told them I'd be right out. I hitched up my old tow truck, the one I'd been putting off fixing, and drove out there. The bus was big, an older model, yellow with some brightly colored handprints painted on the side. When I got it back to the garage, I was already calculating the potential earnings. A bus engine was complex, parts were expensive, labor would be considerable. This could be the job that got me over the hump, the one that paid for Sarah's next tuition installment, maybe even fixed my lift. I had just received another final notice for my property taxes, and my stomach was a tight knot of worry. This bus, this was my salvation. I imagined the relief I'd feel handing over the check. I started to work, my mind already on the repair plan. I pulled out my tools, began the diagnostic, and started to disassemble the engine compartment. It was a mess. A fuel line had ruptured, and there were other issues, 2 minor ones, but they added up. As I worked, trying to get a better look at a particular valve, my elbow brushed against something tucked into the seat behind the driver's area. It was a faded flyer, brightly colored, with a drawing of kids laughing around a campfire. "Camp Sunshine," it read. "A summer of hope for Detroit's." Below it was a smaller line, "Providing unforgettable experiences for underprivileged children." My heart sank. I remembered hearing about Camp Sunshine. It was a volunteer-run place operating on shoestring donations, a lifeline for kids who didn't have much else. My hands, which had been moving with such purpose, suddenly felt heavy. I looked at the bus again, at the joyful, messy handprints on the side, at a child's drawing taped to the dashboard, a wobbly sun and stick figures. This wasn't some corporate fleet. This was hope on wheels for kids who needed it most. My mind flashed back to Sarah, to her bright smile, to her dreams. How could I charge them? How could I possibly burden a place like this, which was already doing so much good with so little? But then the other voice, the fear, roared back. "How can you not charge them, Dan? You need this money. Your daughter needs this money. Your garage needs this money." My hands trembled. I had already put in hours of work, ordered some specialty gaskets. I was at my lowest point. I felt utterly trapped, torn between my own desperate need for survival and a moral obligation that felt impossible to ignore. I slumped against the tire, the smell of grease and despair filling my lungs. Giving up on the garage felt less painful than this. I stood there for a long time just looking at that bus. My hands were already covered in grease, my back aching. I thought about the kids, about their faces in the drawings, about the summer of hope the flyer promised. And then I thought about my dad, about the lessons he taught me, not just about fixing engines, but about integrity, about doing the right thing, even when it hurt. He'd always said, "A good name is worth more than a full wallet, Dan." And in that moment, something shifted inside me. The fear was still there, a knot in my stomach, but a different feeling started to grow alongside it, a quiet resolve. I took a deep breath. I picked up my wrench. I decided right then and there I would fix that bus, and I wouldn't charge them a single penny. It was a leap of faith, a desperate gamble with my own future, but it felt right. When the camp director, a kind woman named Martha with tired eyes but a warm smile, came to pick up the bus a few days later, I showed her all the work I'd done, explained the parts I'd replaced, and made sure she understood it was running perfectly. She asked for the bill. I looked her straight in the eye, my voice a little rougher than usual. "Martha," I said, "there's no charge for this one. Consider it my contribution to Camp Sunshine. Some things," I added, glancing at the handprints on the bus, "are just more important than money." Her eyes widened, then filled with tears. She tried to argue, insisted she could pay something, but I held firm. As she drove away, waving profusely, I felt a strange mix of relief and renewed dread. I'd done the right thing, but my wallet felt even emptier. The following week was quiet, too quiet. The lift finally broke down completely, just as I feared. I stared at the closed sign I'd had to put up for big jobs, my spirits lower than ever. Then, a few days later, a sleek black car pulled into my lot. A man in a sharp suit stepped out. "Mr. Dan?" he asked. "Martha from Camp Sunshine gave me your name. She said you wouldn't let her pay for the bus repairs and that you did an exceptional job." My heart started to beat a little faster. He explained he was the director of a large youth center downtown, and they had a fleet of vans that needed regular maintenance, plus one bus that needed a complete overhaul. "She said you were the most honest mechanic she'd ever met," he finished, a smile spreading across his face. That was the turning point. I repaired that bus, then the vans, and soon word began to spread. Not just among local nonprofits, but among regular folks too, people who valued honesty and good old-fashioned integrity. My garage, which had been so quiet, started humming with activity. I was able to buy a new lift, pay off my property taxes, and finally set aside that money for Sarah's tuition. My new normal isn't just about having more business, it's about feeling a deep connection to my community. I still work hard, but the heavy weight of doubt is mostly gone, replaced by a quiet sense of purpose. I still offer discounts to community groups, and I keep an eye out for anyone who might need a helping hand. Just last week, I helped a young couple fix their worn-out minivan for almost nothing, remembering how much I needed a break myself not so long ago. I saw the Camp Sunshine bus pass by just yesterday, full of laughing kids, and I felt a warmth spread through me that no amount of money could buy. It's funny how life works. When I thought I had nothing left to give, giving anyway was what brought me everything I needed. It's a twist of fate, I guess, a reminder that sometimes the kindness you offer to a stranger is the very thing that finds its way back to you, fixing not just engines, but entire lives.